Take a look at some of the other stories that hit home today. 52% of Americans say they haven't gotten a raise in the last 12 months. Researchers say that's despite a tight labor market, which actually makes it harder for employers to find workers. Of the 48% who saw a bump in salary, 30% says it was due to a raise. 10% found a better paying job. 8% say they got both. There are some new concerns about certain models of the Ford Explorer. Ford saying carbon monoxide can seep into some models made between 2011 and this year. We're talking about more than 1 million Explorers. Owners will be receiving notices about it. But get this, it is not a recall. Ford isn't recalling those vehicles. It is offering, though, free repair. So if you have one, you want to get in touch. Plus, we've got a mixed bag here for you for Thanksgiving. I'll give you the good news first. Your traditional Thanksgiving dinner is now at its cheapest since 2013. That's according to the American Farm Bureau Federation, which says the cost of turkeys, sweet potatoes, green peas, and pie shells are all down this year. The bad news may take you a little longer to get to that meal. AAA says we should expect record traffic delays in some of the country's biggest cities around Thanksgiving. The highest volume of drivers on the roads is expected since 2005. So you might want to think up some games to play while you're stuck in traffic. And that's some of the other news that hits home. Every day, frankly, since the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke, we are sharing with you new stories, new allegations of men behaving badly. Women sharing their stories bravely of sexual harassment. And yet you still wonder, how is this happening? Well, maybe there's an answer to stop it when freelance writer came up with a guide of sorts for men who are perhaps concerned about how to interact with women. So her approach, just treat all the women you're meeting. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I love that the headline really grabs you. The Rock Test, a hack for men who don't want to be accused of sexual harassment. And it's funny, but it's also deadly serious.
It is, yeah. And so this was kind of a joke showing that, like, well, if you just pretend she's someone you wouldn't harass, you won't harass her.
But I love this comparison you make, too, because oftentimes we'll hear, oh, well, think about it as if it's your daughter or your sister or even your mother, and yet none of that's getting through. So, for example, the pictures that we threw up, this was one of your first examples with some of those pictures. You meet someone for coffee who reaches out because they're searching for professional advice.
Objects. They're not prey. They're not, people that you're trying to trick into sleeping with you. They're just normal people who are trying to work like everybody else.
And when they're asking you for professional help, they're probably actually asking you for professional help.
Exactly. It really is that easy.
Yeah, it's amazing if you take people on their word. It's interesting because before we sat down today, I started looking around for research that's been done because I wanted to get a sense of whether or not there have been studies to show how well, if at all the sexual harassment training that we're all going through, is it working? We have to do it every year. The House is making changes. The Senate made some changes last week.
Right.
It's amazing. There's actually not a lot of research out there, and there's not a lot of science behind it. Does that surprise you at all? In all seriousness, these are the people who are making the rules for the country, and now we're learning about more and more of them flouting not only rules and, potentially laws, but just rules of common decency.
Exactly. It's something I think every single individual needs to take responsibility for in the way they conduct themselves and in the way they, treat the people they work with. If they're
Al Franken released a longer statement a little bit earlier this hour. And one of the things stood out to me because I was thinking about our conversation coming up. He said over the last few months, all of this coverage, the simple guide that you offered, as well, is it starting our men thinking differently?
Gee, I hope so. It certainly is nice that in 2017 there are men offering to consider their effect on other human beings. That's great. Really. Thank you, I guess. But yeah, I think that hopefully men are a little bit more aware of what they're doing. I've talked to some men who are like, I'm scared. And I'm like, well, good. I'm scared all the time.
Right. Welcome to my world.
Exactly. A lot of people go through this world very scared. So, that's not an unusual thing. So I think it's great if men are using this as an occasion to reevaluate the way they treat people.
I think the piece shirt is great. I highly encourage everybody to check it out at Medium. And Victoria, great to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Moments ago, House Republicans voting on a massive tax overhaul.